Hello students, a very good afternoon to all of you. Welcome to Unacademy. This class is about the age of Chaucer in the British history of English literature. Hello everyone, very good afternoon. In my previous videos, I have already covered up the Anglo-Saxon age and the Anglo-Norman age. Now in this video, I will talk about the age of Chaucer. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Nishita. Good afternoon. Okay. But before starting, I want to give you a brief introduction about myself. My name is Brishti Mukherjee. I have qualified NTA UGC NET exam in English literature 3 times and West Bengal SET exam this year. I have also topped NPTEL online course from IIT Madras 3 times. I have 10 months of teaching experience. Now, before starting, I want to inform you about Unacademy. Unacademy, as you all know, it is the largest learning platform in India. So to access Unacademy learning app, you need to go to Google Play Store and from there you can install the Unacademy learning app. Then you should click on the category of NTA UGC NET. And if you want to take subscription plan, you can choose the plans for 12 months or 24 months. And if you use my referral code Brishti10, you will get 10% extra discount. Okay. And this is my profile in Unacademy learning app. So please click on the follow button so that you will be notified every time when I will post a special class. Clear? Now, let's begin. Hello, Sana. Good afternoon. Now, before starting the age of Chaucer, you need to know the historical background of this age. As you all know that in each age of history of English literature, some important historical event happened which became very popular and became very important to understand the literature written during that period. So the social background, first of all, you need to know that during the age of Chaucer, England saw the reign of 3 kings. Very important thing. Who are the 3 kings? Edward III, Richard II and Henry IV. So basically Geoffrey Chaucer was born during the reign of Edward III from 1327 to 1377 and he lived during the reign of Richard II from 1377 to 1399 and he died during the reign of Edward IV. He died during the reign of Henry IV from 1399 to 1413. So I'm talking about Chaucer. Okay. And this period, the age of Chaucer, is considered the transitional period between medieval and Renaissance. Nishita, I have already taken 3 classes on Anglo-Saxon age and Anglo-Norman age. You can see the video maybe in the playlist section or you can just browse over the video section where you will find. All recorded videos are available. Please see that. Hello Pallavi, good afternoon. So it is a transitional period between medieval and Renaissance. Okay. Now, what are the other important features? Growth of trade and commerce. So as I have told you that during the Anglo-Norman age, a new class of people came into being who are called feudalists. So feudalism came into being at that time. But in the age of Chaucer, you will find the growth of trade and commerce. for the first time. Okay. And new merchant class arises. So a new class of social hierarchy has come, the merchant class, the businessman. A businessman. In today's special class at 8 a.m. I am talking about the Canterbury Tales, where I also mentioned that in the Canterbury Tales you will also find the character of a merchant, right? In the prologue section, Chaucer has described the merchant. Pratibha, I am very new to Unacademy platform. That is why my plus course has yet not been launched. But you will find my special classes in the Unacademy Learning app. And currently I am teaching on YouTube and the special class. My plus course has not been yet activated. Okay, Pratibha, but I hope you will find it very soon. I am very new to this platform. That's why my plus course has not yet started. Okay. You will find special classes. All classes are free, both special classes and YouTube classes. Okay. So, coming back to the topic, a new merchant class arises, that is the class of the businessman. You will also find in Canterbury Tales the instance of that. Now, society was divided into 3 estates. What are the 3 estates? The clergyman, the warriors, and the common people, who labored to support these estates. So 3 important classes were formed: the clergyman, the warrior class, and the common people. In the Canterbury Tales, you will also find all this hierarchical division of the characters. There were the knight from the warrior group, from the clergyman you will see the prioress, the monk, okay, and from common people there are 5 guildsmen, the plowman. They are all the characters. So society was divided into 3 groups. For the very first time, 3 distinct groups were available: the clergyman, the warriors, and the common people. Okay, so these are the features. Another thing is that the reign of King Edward was peaceful, but it showed no great output in literature. So King Edward, the rule of King Edward was peaceful, but it was not very important from literary point of view. Church was the most powerful authority. So again, the importance of church became very popular. Every aspect of individual and public life needed the sanction of the church. As you will also see in Canterbury Tales, that the parson and the pardoner who sells, not the parson, the pardoner who sells indulgences or the pardons to do some services of common people. That is why the church became the most powerful authority, and each aspect of individual's life based on the rules and regulations of church. So indirectly, religion or Christianity became very popular. Good afternoon, Ranu. Welcome to my class. Now, another, from the point of view of language and literature, the East Midland dialect became standardized as standard English used in different universities. So East Midland dialect became prominent, and authors had specific identities. This is the most important feature. In Anglo-Saxon age and somewhat in medieval age also, we find a number of anonymous works. Okay, but during the age of Chaucer, we always find the names of the authors. There are no more anonymous works. So authors had specific identities. No more anonymous works is here. And this age also has a keen spirit of criticism. So the spirit of criticism and to satire someone, as you can also see in Canterbury Tales that Chaucer has satirized some characters. So this spirit of satirization or criticizing someone is available in the age of Chaucer. Okay. So this is all about the social background. Now we will talk about some important historical events happened during the reign of Chaucer. There are a number of important historical events which was also important from literary point of view also. Okay, so we will analyze it one by one. Now, The very first important historical event was 100 Years' War. Very, very important. 100 Years' War. It continued from 1337 to 1453. Actually, it was named as 100 Years' War, but it continued for 117 years. Okay, but it was named 100 Years' War. What was this war all about? This war was fought between England and France. Okay, England and France. Now, what is the context of the war? What was the background? French King Philip IV and his sons died. Okay, so French King Philip IV died and his sons also died. So what happened? That French throne was empty. Okay. And after their death, the dynasty which is called as which is called as Capetian dynasty. The dynasty of Philip IV and his sons were called Capetian dynasty of French. So with their deaths, Capetian dynasty has come to an end. Okay. Now who will become the next king? The French throne was empty. So there was a debate who will become the next king. No rightful male heir is available from Philip IV's side. Okay, so what will happen? Then it was discovered that King Edward III, who was the king of England, he was somehow related to King Philip IV. How? He was the grandson of Philip. Okay. Though Philip IV was the ruler of France and Edward III was the ruler of England, but they are related. How are they related? Edward III was the grandson of Philip. So very close relation, we may say. Now, in that context, Edward III should become the rightful heir of the French throne also, according to rule. Now what happened? Naturally, Edward claimed his right on the French throne, that I am the grandson of Philip IV, so I should take over the throne after the death of my grandfather. But French people preferred Philip's nephew, Philip of Valois. Okay, so Philip IV has a nephew, Philip of Valois. Now French people think that Edward III was the ruler of England, so we will not let him rule French also. That is why we will choose Philip's nephew, who his name was Philip of Valois. So French people preferred Philip of Valois to become the king. And Edward naturally became very furious. He attacked France. Okay. Thus the 100 Years' War started. Now the 100 Years' War actually continued in 3 phases. What are the 3 phases? Edwardian era, Caroline era and Lancastrian era. These are the 3 phases of the 100 Years' War. Okay. Total 26 battles were fought. So you can imagine how long the battle was. 26 battles were fought, and the last battle was Siege of Castilian. Siege of Castilian, and the first battle was the Battle of Cadsand. Battle of Cadsand. This was the first battle. In the first battle, English people won. Okay, but in the last battle, at the end, France won the war. So all the names of the battles are not important. I am only telling you the first one and the last one. This was the first one. Okay. Battle of Cadsand was the first battle and Siege of Castilian was the last battle. Battle of Cadsand was won by English people, and Siege of Castilian, that is the last battle, was won by French. So ultimately the French people won the war. And there was another famous battle, I hope you have heard the name, that is Battle of Agincourt. You will find a lot of reference to this battle in literary pieces. Battle of Agincourt. In this battle also English people won. So actually 100 years war is a prolonged war. Inside the war there are numerous battles were fought, and each battle has a particular name. Okay, so total 26 battles were fought. In the first battle English people won. In battle of Agincourt also English people won, but at the end in the last battle, Siege of Castellion, the French people finally won the war. Okay, and both these countries emerged as powerful nations. So though English people were defeated, but not only France but England also emerged as a very powerful nation. And what happened afterward, that the taxes were increased on the common people, naturally. So this is about the war, the 100 Years War. Now, another important interesting event is the Black Death. Okay. Why don't we get notification, ma'am? Have you pressed the bell icon after subscription, Ranu? Have you placed the bell icon? Then notification must come, I think. Or you can do one thing. You will search the Unacademy UGC NET YouTube channel, this YouTube channel, and you will find a link of upcoming live stream. Okay. So in the upcoming live stream, you will get my class and set a reminder over there. There will be another bell icon set reminder, so you can set a reminder. I think then you will get notification. Okay. I don't know why the notifications are coming. It should come if you pressed the subscription button or the bell icon. So please do that. You can set a reminder of my class. I will come live from Monday to Friday every day at 3 p.m. In this YouTube channel. So you can press the bell icon over and set a reminder. I think after that you will get notification. Okay. So coming back to the class, Black Death. Another important historical event, Black Death, which happened in 1348 and continued up to 1350. So 2 years long pandemic, devastating pandemic. Our COVID-19 pandemic is just covering 1 year. Okay, just covering 1 year. So Black Death continued up to 2 years. It's the most devastating pandemic of 14th century, and it is also known as bubonic plague. Bubonic plague. Okay. So Black Death is also known as bubonic plague. It continued for 2 years. Now what happened? That Black Death first appeared in Dorset and then reached its height in the summer of 1349. So in 1348 it first broke out in Dorset. As our COVID-19 pandemic first started in China, then came to India. Similarly, the Black Death first started in Dorset, then reached its height in summer of 1349. Okay. And it was caused by the bacterium Yersinia pestis. So the name is not very important. I have just mentioned it. So it was due to some bacteria, and it killed 30 to 40% of the population. As you can understand that at that time the medicine facility or the infrastructure of hospitals were not so good. That is why the deaths were maximum. A large number of population completely washed out after the Black Death. That is why it is known as Black Death. Very, very devastating, dreadful pandemic. Okay, during the 14th century. So 30 to 40% of the population was completely destroyed, completely washed away from the and many kinds of short places or short villages have also been completely washed out after the Black Death. So and what happened? There are a number of effects after this pandemic, Black Death. What happened? That laborers became less in number. You can very well understand that 30 to 40% of the population was washed away. So naturally, the labors became less. This is a very common effect, right? And what happened that peasants demanded extra wages and they moved to accept various works. So Black Death also destroyed the peasants economically. That is why they are demanding extra wages, and to fulfill their to fulfill their extra income, they moved to accept various works. So a large number of other professions also developed. They are in search of some other jobs also besides agriculture. Okay. And the most important fact is that many English priests died in this Black Death. And the vacant places were hastily filled by inefficient people. Church has lost its power. Very, very important effect. As I have mentioned previously, that during the age of Chaucer, church was the most powerful authority. Right, church was the church, and the people who were associated with the church were, hello Kavita, good afternoon. They were all at the highest level of social hierarchy. But a single incident, a single pandemic, Black Death, actually shattered everything. Church has lost its power. You can very well see this effect in the Canterbury Tales, as Chaucer has described that a number of people associated with religion are mainly corrupt. As you can see, the prioress, the monk, they are all very corrupt persons. So honest religious people became very rare. And as I have said, that the vacant places were hastily filled by inefficient people. So just to fulfill all the posts in the church, randomly people were chosen. Okay, so they have no devotion towards religion, no devotion towards God. They have no passion towards doing religious jobs, but they are just set up in all the posts. That is why, and where inefficient people come, naturally the whole the hierarchy, the whole reputation of the church was collapsed. That is why church has lost its power. So Christianity fell down from the very top level to the bottom level. Okay, that is an important effect of Black Death. Now another important event is the Peasants' Revolt, 1381, very important historical event, and you will find the description of Peasant Revolt in Vox Clamantis. Vox Clamantis by John Gower. John Gower's work, Vox Clamantis, you will find a beautiful description of Peasant Revolt here. Okay. Now, why the peasants were starting revolt? Because what happened, as I have already told you, that after the 100 Years' War, the number of taxes were increased on the people. So a new third poll tax was imposed on the people. People were already paying a lot of taxes. People were paying tithes to the churches. A new tax was imposed. Now, what was this new tax? This new tax says that everyone over age of 15 had to pay 1 shilling. They had to pay 1 shilling. That is the tax. So everyone over the age of 15, that means mostly the adult person, they had to pay 1 shilling. This is a new tax which was imposed after the 100 Years' War, which is known as the third poll tax. Now, the peasants refused to pay such high amount because of economic loss after Black Death. Naturally, Black Death not only destroyed the population, but also destroyed a number of fields or a number of jobs done by the people. So many people were jobless also after the Black Death. Now the economic loss was there. So when there is the crisis of economy, how will the people pay such high tax? That is why people, or basically the peasants, refuse to pay such high amount because of economic loss. They have no money. So how can they pay 1 shilling as a tax? So they revolted. Now the revolt started when tax collector came. They became very furious. So you can say this is something, the direct reason of the peasants revolt. As you have read in history that the 1857 Sepoy mutiny caused after the Enfield rifle was started. We consider Enfield rifle as the direct reason of Sepoy mutiny, right? So in the same way, yes, high taxes and government rules. Yes. So, in the same way, when the tax collector came, the whole revolt actually broke out. Now, who are the leaders? Two leaders were there, Wat Tyler and Jack Straw. They were the two leaders. You need to remember their names. Now, what are the demands of the peasants? They demanded an end of serfdom. Okay. Serfdom means the end of the rule of the serfs, the servants actually. Free contract, free pardon of all offences committed during the rebellion, no upper limit of wages, etc. So these were their demands, the demands of the revolters. And what happened, that Wat Tyler was finally killed and the rebellion ended. So with the death of their leader, the rebellion came to an end. So you need to remember these three important historical events. 100 Years War, 1337, then 1348 is Black Death, and after that Peasant Revolt. Okay, so you need to remember these three important historical events during the age of Chaucer. Now we will move on to the works of Geoffrey Chaucer and his life also. So Geoffrey Chaucer lived from 1340 to 1400. So you should remember this time span, and we will talk about his works in detail. Now, first of all, I will talk to you some biographical details related to the life of Chaucer. So Geoffrey Chaucer was born in London in the Vintry place. The town's name was Vintry in London in 1340. Okay, and he was the son of a wine merchant. Look, Chaucer's father was also a merchant, the new business class, right? So he was the son of a wine merchant, and he served as a page. Page means servant. You will find the use of the word page in Shakespearean plays mainly. So page means servant. So Chaucer worked as a servant to Elizabeth. Who was Elizabeth? Wife of Lionel, the third son of Edward III. So Lionel was the third son of Edward III, and Lionel's wife was Elizabeth. That means Elizabeth was the daughter-in-law of Edward III. Okay. So Chaucer served as a page as a servant to Elizabeth. And he accompanied Lionel on a military campaign. To France. So Chaucer also served in military. Chaucer accompanied Lionel to France, and what happened, that he was imprisoned there. But Edward III paid a ransom amount to free him. He was imprisoned, and with the ransom amount paid by Edward III, Chaucer came out of the prison. Another important thing is that Chaucer was patronized by John of Gaunt. Now, to keep patron was a culture of the English poets. Patron means that he will give you some monetary or some financial support. That is the role of a patron. Patron will inspire you to write and will give you some financial support. So Chaucer also got a patron whose name was John of Gaunt. Okay. And Chaucer's diplomatic missions took him to Italy. Chaucer also went to Italy, and he buried in the Westminster Abbey in 1400. Okay. And another thing is that Chaucer is also known, you all know, Chaucer is called the father of English poetry. Chaucer is called the father of English poetry. Okay. And this Westminster Abbey, after the death of Chaucer, came to be known as the Poets' Corner. Westminster Abbey is known as the Poets' Corner, and Chaucer was the first poet to be buried in the Poets' Corner. Okay. So these are also some detailed information about Chaucer's life. Now we will move on to Chaucer's literary career. Now Chaucer's writings are divided into three periods. Okay, what are the three periods? French period, Italian period and English period. So this French-Italian period means that Chaucer drew inspiration from French sources or Italian sources, that's it. So three kinds of periods were there. Now Chaucer has written a number of important works, not only Canterbury Tales, but his other works are also very important. So I will cover up all these works in detail in this video. So these are the divisions, the classification of Chaucer's writing. Ma'am, this is 5th class of yours? No, on YouTube this is my 4th class. This is my 4th class. On Anglo-Saxon age I have taken 2 classes and 1 class on Anglo-Norman age. And on YouTube this is my 4th class on the age of Chaucer. Now we come on to the French period. First period, the French period. The first important work is Roman of the Rose. This is the work, and it was actually a translation from French work La Romane de la Rose. La Romane de la Rose is the title of the French work written by 2 poets, Guillaume de Loris and Jean de Meaux. 2 poets wrote this work, La Romane de la Rose. Actually, this work was first written by Guillaume de Loris. Okay, Loris wrote up to 467 lines. 4067 lines were written by Guillaume de Loris. After that, Jean de Meaux actually completed the work and he finished the work with 18,000 lines. That is why 2 authors. So La Romane de la Rose was first started to be written by Guillaume de Loris. Loris first started it. He wrote up to 4067 lines, and after that Jean de Meaux completed the work with 18,000 lines. So when the work was completed, it was 18,000 lines long. Okay. And so this was about the French work. Now Chaucer actually translated this French work into English as Roman of the Rose. Okay, and this work is based on the idea of chivalrous love, very popular in French love poetry tradition. So as I have already told you that the notion of chivalry or chivalric emotions were very important during the medieval period and also during the age of Chaucer. So this work is also talking about chivalric love and very popular, which was very popular in French love poetry tradition. Now, what is the plot about? I'm talking about the plot of Roman of the Rose, Chaucer's work. Okay. So Chaucer writes that in his dream, the poet sees himself in Garden of Mirth, where he meets certain allegorical figures. So it is also a kind of dream poem. Dream poem is also a very important genre. Chaucer has written a number of dream poems. So in his dream, the poet sees himself in the Garden of Mirth, where he meets allegorical figures. Certain allegorical figures. What are they talking about? They are talking about their own love affairs and failure of love. So it is a typical story of love and love tradition, the French love poetry tradition. Okay, so the allegorical figures tell him about their love affairs and failure of love. Now the poet falls in love with a rosebud. This is all about the dream sequence. Okay. So this is about the Roman of the Rose. Now the next important work belong to the French period. This is very important. This is the Book of Duchess. Okay, this work is Book of Duchess. Book of Duchess is actually an elegy cum eulogy. Eulogy means a poem which is written in praise of someone. In praise of someone. In praise of. So the Book of Duchess is also an elegy cum eulogy written on the death of Blanche of Lancaster, wife of John of Gaunt, who died of plague. So you all know that John of Gaunt was the patron of, yes, mirth means joy. Actually, the garden was named as Garden of Mirth. So Chaucer's patron was John of Gaunt, and John of Gaunt's wife was Blanche of Lancaster. Okay, so on the death of Blanche, Chaucer has written this work, the Book of Duchess. Blanche died of plague. Okay. So the poem opens with a sleepless poet who is reading the story of Six and Alcyone. This is also a kind of dream poem. The poem opens that the sleepless poet who is reading a book of the story of Six and Alcyone. Now what happened that when he fell asleep in his dream, he saw a knight dressed in black. So you all know that black is the color of mourning or lamentation. Black is also the color of evil, but here evil is not suggested. It is talking about lamentation. Okay. So black is the color of mourning. So the knight came who was dressed in black. Now the knight tells him the story of a beautiful lady's courtship and also mourns for her death. So naturally this lady is Blanche. Okay. So the poet sees in his dream that a knight dressed in black, that means dressed in mourning dress, he has come and he is telling the poet the courtship of a beautiful lady and also mourns for her death. Okay, so that is the elegy of written by Chaucer, and very importantly it was written in octosyllabic couplet. This is the rhyming form, octosyllabic couplet. Octo means 8, sorry, 8 syllable couplet. So in Chaucer's poems, this kind of rhyming information are always very important, because it often asks that which of Chaucer's poem are written in rhyme royal, which of Chaucer's poem are written in octosyllabic couplet. So these kind of questions can be asked. So you need to remember that which poem is written in which rhyme scheme. The Book of Duchess is written in octosyllabic couplet. Okay. Now the other poems are Annelida and Archite. Other poems means other poems of the French period. I am talking about the French period. So other poems of the French period are Annelida and Archite, which was influenced by Boccaccio's Tessida. Okay. And ABC, the complaint unto pity, the complaint of Mars, a complaint to his lady. So these are all the other poems. These are not very important. You need to know the titles. Okay. Now, next important phase is the Italian period. What about the Italian period? The first important work is the House of Fame. Okay. House of Fame is an autobiographical dream allegory in 3 books. Okay, so it is a dream allegory in 3 books. Now I will tell you a brief summary. What happened that in book 1, the poet dreams about a temple of Venus where he finds inscriptions of Virgil's Aeneid. So there is also a reference to Aeneid. The poet dreams that he has visited a temple of Venus, and there he finds some inscriptions, some manuscripts or some documents of Virgil's work Aeneid. Now what happened that when he comes out of the temple, he sees a golden eagle. Eagle cannot be golden, but the poet is actually dreaming that he is actually seeing a golden eagle who is flying in the sky. Now what happened? In book 2, the poet is carried away by the eagle to the house of fame. So the eagle is actually flying in the sky, and finally the eagle comes down. It carries the poet to the house of fame. Okay. And in this book also the poet talks about his conversation with the eagle. He is talking with the eagle is answering him back. So this conversation is also described in book 2. Now in book 3, the poet talks about his difficulty in climbing on a high rock on which the house is situated. So house of fame is an imaginary house which is situated on top of a hill. So in book 2, the poet is actually going towards the house of fame. So that is the time of his journey. And in book 3, we can see that the journey has ended. The poet has finally come to the place. But the house of fame is actually situated on a high rock. And the poet is climbing onto the hill. So the poet describes his difficulty in climbing on a high rock on which the house is situated. Okay. And while he was talking with the eagle actually said him that I am taking to you to this house of fame because here from there you will learn about all the emotions, like all love affairs, all jealousies and hypocrisies of men. All affairs, jealousies and hypocrisies of men. So that is why I am taking you towards the house of fame. The eagle has informed him about that. So Chaucer finally came to the house of fame. Now the book is actually left unfinished. We don't know what happened after Chaucer came and how will the poem end. The ending is not there. It was left unfinished. Only Chaucer has described that house of fame was situated on a high rock, and the rock was covered with ice. So ice rock. Okay. That is the description of where the house of fame is situated. At this point, the poem comes to an end. There is no other description that what did Chaucer learn, whom did Chaucer meet after reaching the house of fame. That is not given. Okay, and it was influenced by Aeneid and also Dante's Divine Comedy. Please remember the Divine Comedy is also divided into 3 books: Inferno, Purgatorio, and Paradiso. 3 books. In the same way, the House of Fame is also divided into 3 books. Okay, so it was influenced by Aeneid and the Divine Comedy. Also remember that which work is influenced by which writer. That may also come in your question. So it is also an unfinished poem by Chaucer. Now we move on to the next important poem during the Italian period, that is the Parliament of Fowls. Parliament of Fowls. It is a dream allegory written in rhyme royal. Rhyme royal is a 7-line stanza form. 7-line stanza form. Rhyme royal. Okay. So it was written in rhyme royal. And what is the plot? It talked about. It was written to celebrate the marriage between Anne of Bohemia and Richard II. Okay, so this is the context of the poem. To celebrate the marriage between Anne of Bohemia and Richard II. I have told you that Chaucer lived during the reign of Richard II. So when Richard II was married to Anne of Bohemia, Chaucer has written this poem, the Parliament of Fowls. Now, fowl means bird. Right. What is the plot? In the poem, we can see that the narrator is reading Cicero's work Dream of Scipio and is led to the temple of Venus. Okay. So the narrator is reading this book and is led to the temple of Venus. Next, what happened? On St. Valentine's Day, so please remember that the Parliament of Fowls was set on the Valentine's Day. So on St. Valentine's Day, a group of birds gathered in the temple of Venus. Why? To debate upon how to choose their mates. So there was a kind of a meeting or debate between the birds. How to choose their mates. So they gathered to discuss the plan, how to choose their mates. Now, as I have already told you in my previous class that in Owl and the Nightingale there were also a debate, right? The debate between Owl and the Nightingale remained inconclusive and the author somehow managed to reconcile it. Similarly, this debate between the this debate among the group of birds is also remained inconclusive, but it has some satirical elements. Okay, so this debate has also become inconclusive. Now, the next important work is The Legend of Good Women. Okay, this is written in rhyming heroic couplet. So, the Book of Duchess is written in octosyllabic couplet. The Parliament of Fowls is written in rhyme royal, and The Legend of Good Women is written in rhyming heroic couplet. 10-syllabic rhyming heroic couplet. That is the stanza form. It is also unfinished. So as you can see, many of Chaucer's works are unfinished. Even his masterpiece, the Canterbury Tales, is also unfinished. But each of his work is the greatest piece of literature. Canterbury Tales is still considered the greatest work, one of the greatest works of English literature, right? So that is the importance or the mastery of a poet. His unfinished works are also become his masterpiece. Okay, so coming back, The Legend of Good Women is also an unfinished work. Chaucer originally planned to consist this work of a prologue and stories of 19 virtuous women who were martyrs to love. Okay, so Legend of Good Women is actually a catalogue of or a series of biographies of some virtuous women, some legendary virtuous women who sacrificed their lives for love. Okay, so love martyrs. But Chaucer planned to write about 19 virtuous women, but actually 9 stories are completed. 9 stories can be completed. Now, in the prologue, Chaucer mentioned that why he is trying to write about women suddenly. Chaucer mentioned that he is writing this work as a response to Cupid's allegation that he always defames women. So Cupid has given him an allegation that he always defames women. He always neglects the women characters. That is why, to give a response to that, Chaucer wrote this work, The Legend of Good Women. Yes, that poem was Fear is foul, foul is fear. Yes, lines of Macbeth. Fear is foul, foul is fear. Okay, so this is and this work is described as Chaucer's take on women question. Remember the phrase Chaucer's take on women question, very important. For the first time, Chaucer is exclusively writing about women in a good light, in a virtuous light. So only 9 stories are completed. Now, who are the 9 legendary women whom Chaucer has talked about? They were Medea, Cleopatra, famous Antonio and Cleopatra, you know, Lucretia, Dido of Carthage. You know that Christopher Marlowe has written the tragedy of Dido, right? Philomela, Ariadne, Thisbe, Pyramus and Thisbe, a famous work, Hypermnestra and Phyllis. So these were the 9 virtuous women whom Chaucer finally talked about in The Legend of Good Women. Now, the next important poem, very, very important poem, Troilus and Cresside. Troilus and Cresside. Now, remember that this work is also known as a verse novel. It is also a verse novel and very important psychological piece of writing. This is Chaucer's longest complete poem. Now, for the first time, Chaucer has completed a poem, longest complete poem of 8,000 lines. So, quite long poem. Okay. And it was influenced by Boccaccio's Il Filostrato. This is the Italian work which was the base for this work, Troilus and Cresside. It was also written in rhyme royal, divided into 3 books. Now, what is the plot? It talks about the tragic love story of Troilus and Cresside. Okay, so this is also a love story. Now, Chaucer, in Boccaccio's Il Filostrato, there is no character called Pandarus. But when Chaucer was writing this poem, Chaucer actually invented or creates a new character, Pandarus. Okay, who was Pandarus? Pandarus was the uncle of Cresside and Troilus' friend. Chaucer actually invents this character. Okay, now the story begins with how Trojan prince Troilus, so Troilus was Trojan prince, Troilus, with the help of Pandarus, his friend, helps Cresside, a young widow, to overcome her fear of scandal and finally confesses his love for her. So Cresside is a widow, right? Cresside is a widow, a very young widow, but Troilus loves her. Now, with the help of Pandarus, Troilus actually tries to help Cresside so that she can come out of all kinds of fear of scandal and finally confesses his love for her. Cresside also loves Troilus. So Troilus actually requests Cresside that please come out from your fear of scandal and accept my love. Okay. Now what happens? That Cresaide's father, Calchas, moved towards the Greek side. So he actually changes side from Troy to Greece. Okay. So Cresaide's father Calchas moved towards the Greek side. Naturally, what happened that through an exchange of prisoners, Cresside also goes to her father in the Greek camp. Okay, Cresside also leaves, but before leaving, she actually promises Troilus that I will definitely return. I will loyal to you. I will be loyal to you, and I will definitely return after some time. So she promised Troilus that now I am going to Greek camp with my father, but I will surely return. I am loyal to you. She promised Troilus. Now what happened? That in Greek camp, Cresside meets another young man who is called Diomed. Who was Diomed? Diomed was a Greek escort. So Cresside meets Diomed and she falls in love with her. She actually betrays Troilus, right? She proves unfaithful to Troilus. And Troilus waits for her that she will return. And later, Troilus becomes desperate. Finally, Troilus was killed by Achilles, the famous Trojan hero, you all know. So Achilles finally killed Troilus. So that is how Troilus faced a tragic death for his love for Cresside. So that is the story of Troilus and Cresside. Now the major work of English period is the Canterbury Tales. I have not covered Canterbury Tales here. From here, I want to inform you that today morning, I have already taken a special class at 8 a.m. on Unacademy app. Okay, I have already taken a special class on Unacademy app. Yes, 8,000 lines, Kavita. 8,000 lines. So today at 8 a.m. I have already taken a class on Unacademy Learning app. This is a free special class. Okay, this is a free special class on the Canterbury Tales. Today I have talked about the general prologue section. All the character portrayals I have talked in detail. It is an 1 hour class. So I would request all of you who have not joined me live on this class, please go to Unacademy Learning app. You will find the recorded session. So please watch that video. Okay, I will not talk about Canterbury Tales here. I have already discussed it in today's class. And Wednesday at 8 a.m. I have another special class on the same Unacademy learning app. In that class, I will sum up Canterbury Tales. I will talk about all the important tales told by different pilgrims. So the whole classes on Canterbury Tales will be exclusively available on Unacademy learning app. So that they were all the special classes. They were free to watch. So please go to the learning app to see my class, today's class on the Canterbury Tales General Prologue section. Okay. Here I will talk about all the other important works of Chaucer except the Canterbury Tales. Okay. So now I have summed up the Chaucer and his important works. Okay, now we will move on to some other. Now the age is called the age of Chaucer, but it is not the fact that only Chaucer is the only writer of this age. Not that. Chaucer is the most famous writer. That is why the age is called the age of Chaucer. But there were also some other writers who wrote very well during this age. Now I will talk about the other writers who wrote during the time. Another important name is William Langland. After Chaucer, Langland was very prominent, very important poet. So what about William Langland? Very little is known about his life. Okay, so his life is not known. Probably he was born in Ledbury, Herefordshire. He was born in Ledbury. That is known. He was educated at a monastery in Malvern Hills. Malvern Hills also figure in his works also as a setting. Okay, so Langland was educated at a monastery in Malvern Hills and he had deep knowledge of theology. Okay. And his most important work, major work, is PIERS Plowman. This is the single important work of William Langland. You need to know PIERS Plowman in detail also. It is another important work after Canterbury Tales. Okay. Now I will talk about PIERS Plowman. PIERS Plowman has a long title. The Vision of William Concerning PIERS the Plowman. Okay, remember the complete title also. The Vision of William Concerning PIERS the Plowman. And there are total 8 visions. Okay, 8 visions are there in PIERS Plowman. So the vision of William concerning PIERS the Plowman, it survives in 51 manuscripts. Okay, and it was written in alliterative verse form and West Midland dialect. Now what is the plot of PIERS the Plowman? It was composed in 3 texts A, B, C. So 3 parts. It was divided into passages, or passage is also called as sections of unequal length. Okay, so A, B, C. The first part, text A, has 12 sections. Text B has 20 sections, and text C has 23 sections. It has 8 visions. I have already told you. Now, what about the plot? PIERS Plowman has a prologue. The prologue talks about how the poet had fallen asleep on a fine morning in May by the side of Malvern Hills. So I have already told you that William Langland was educated at Malvern Hills. So that is why Malvern Hills came to his work as a setting also. So about the prologue talks about how the poet had fallen asleep on a fine morning in May. So the setting is in May by the side of Malvern Hills. This is also a dream poem, right? Now in his dream, he sees a lofty tower. Okay. But he sees a lofty tower, a dungeon, and between these two, a fair field full of folk working. So that is the vision. He sees a lofty tower and at the bottom a dungeon, and between these two a fair field full of folk working. Now what happened? That holy church, a lovely lady came to teach the poet in his dream. When she departs, the poet sees Lady Mead Lady Mead is actually the allegorical representation of greed. So all figures are allegorical. So when Holy Church was departed, the poet sees Lady Mead, who is going to marry falsehood, which is opposed by theology. So Lady Mead wants to marry falsehood, but theology opposes their marriage. This is also seen in the poet's dream. Now, naturally, Lady Mead repents, and the King of Westminster decides to marry her to conscience. These are all characters, these are all allegorical figures, right? So when Lady Mead repents that her marriage is broken, the King of Westminster decides to marry her to conscience. Who is conscience? Conscience is his faithful knight. Okay, but conscience refuses to marry. So the king wants to marry, to get married Mead with conscience, but conscience refuses to marry Lady Mead. Now in his second vision, the poet sees Reason. Reason also appears as a character who is making a long address to people. So Reason is delivering a long address to people. That was his second vision. Now, the 7 deadly sins are called forth. Who are the 7 deadly sins? You all know: pride, luxury, gluttony, envy, wrath, avarice, and sloth. These are the 7 deadly sins. They are called and they are reprimanded in the second vision. Now, at the end of the poem, PIERS appears. Here's the plowman appears and advises hard manual labor for them. So PIERS advises them that only manual labor can bring you salvation. Only manual labor can help you to achieve success in life. So hard manual labor is needed. And most importantly, he also preaches the philosophy of do well, do better, and do best. So these are the 3 keywords which are very important. Do well, do better, and do best. So that is the advice of PIERS the plowman. Okay, now another important thing during the age of Chaucer is the rise of ballads. Ballad arrives as a new literary genre. Now, what are the important features of ballads during that time? Ballads were mostly anonymous and based on oral traditions. That is why it was anonymous. It is based on oral tradition. Okay. And what are the major themes? The ballads mainly deals with love, supernatural elements, and popular legends. Okay. It was impersonal in tone, and the use of refrain is very important. Refrain means a particular line or a particular phrase which recurs after a succession. Okay, in a single poem, when a line repeats or recurs, that is called refrain. So ballads have the use of refrain. It was impersonal in tone. These are the themes and mostly anonymous, based on oral traditions. Okay. Another important thing is that ballads have some episodic intensification of a single incident. So the incident was single, and there was episodic intensification of a single incident. It was easy to memorize and written for common masses. In a very easy language, ballads were written for the common people. Now, what are the ballads? You just need to know the names. Chevy Chase, very popular ballads of at that time. Chevy Chase, Robin Hood ballads, and Nut Brown Maid. Now, Chevy Chase is considered as the oldest of all ballads. Oldest ballad. Okay. And Robin Hood ballads, you all know, this is about the legendary hero Robin Hood. And Robin Hood ballads has some important poems like Robin Hood and the Monk. Robin Hood and the Monk, Robin and Gandalin. These are the important ballads in the group of Robin Hood ballads. And another important ballad is Nut Brown Maid. Nut Brown Maid is basically a love ballad. So you need to remember the names of the three important ballads. Now we will come on to post-Chaucerian poets. So William Langland was Chaucer's contemporary, but after the death of Chaucer, there were also some notable poets. Who are they? I will talk to you about them now. Post-Chaucerian poets. Now, after the death of Chaucer, the 15th century was a barren period for literature. So, after the death of Chaucer, no great personality actually came during the 15th century. No major literatures were produced, but a group of poets tried to follow Chaucer's footsteps. Okay, so they are called Chaucerian. Okay. So a group of poets, they try to follow Chaucer's writing style, Chaucer's themes, and they can be classified into two groups, the English Chaucerians and the Scottish Chaucerians. From this portion, a number of questions have been asked in the previous NET exams. Oftentimes, some chronology-based questions were given, or you will be given a column to match who are the English Chaucerian, who are the Scottish Chaucerian. So you need to remember that their names and some of their important works also. English Chaucerian and the Scottish Chaucerian. Now, first of all, we move on to English Chaucerian. Who are the English Chaucerian? First important poet was Thomas Occleve. Occleve is also written in this way, Hoccleve. Yes, Occleve or Hoccleve. So Thomas Occleve is the first important English Chaucerian. He was a satirist and a moralist. Okay. He was a satirist and a moralist. What was his works? He translated Aegidius's De Regimen Principum as the Regiment of Princes. Okay, so the Regiment of Princes is actually a translation work from Aegidius's De Regimine Principum. And what is the work all about? It is actually written for the guidance of Prince Henry. So a kind of instruction book, you may say. The Regiment of Princes, his first important work. His autobiography is La Malay Regal. This is his autobiography. Remember the titles, very important. His other works are The Complaint of Our Lady, Occleve's Complaint, etc. So these are all about Thomas Occleve. Now the next important poet is John Lydgate. John Lydgate is considered most voluminous medieval poet. He has written a number of important works. The detailed plot line is not important, but you need to know the title and from which work is it influenced or based on. Okay, that is important. So the first important work of John Lydgate is Complaint of the Black Knight. Complaint of the Black Knight. This is modeled on Chaucer's Book of Duchess. As I have already told you that in Book of Duchess, the poet actually dreams a knight who is dressed in black, who came and talked to the poet about the death of Blanche. He laments. So from that book, John Lydgate has drawn this character of Black Knight. So he wrote this work, Complaint of the Black Knight, which is modeled on Chaucer's Book of Duchess. The next important work is The Siege of Thebes. It is important because it is a response to the Canterbury Tales. So please remember that it is a response to the Canterbury Tales. So who has written a response to the Canterbury Tales? John Lydgate. This work, The Siege of Thebes. The next work is Serpent of Divisions. This is his only prose work. And Serpent of Divisions talks about Julius Caesar. So these small informations are always very important. So Serpent of Divisions is the only prose work of John Lydgate, and this work talks about Julius Caesar. Another thing is that Lydgate also translated Boccaccio's French work, The Fall of Princes. Okay. This is important. He also wrote the Troy book at the command of Henry V and Prince of Wales. So he also wrote another work, the Troy book. Yes, Blanche of Lancaster, uh, the Troy book. Another work is The Temple of Glass, which was inspired by Chaucer's House of Fame. Okay. Another work is Reason and Sensuality, which is actually an allegorical work on chastity. Some other important works are London Lakpenny, The Pilgrimage of the Life of Man, etc. So these are all the works of John Lydgate. Very voluminous, very minute informations are there, right? So you need to know the title of all these works. Now the next important poet, next important English Chaucerian is Stephen Hawes. Stephen Hawes was actually a courtier of King Henry VII and also a poet. So he was a poet come courtier. Hawes was greatly inspired by John Lydgate. His most famous work is The Pastime of Pleasure. Okay, The Pastime of Pleasure is a long allegorical poem of 5,800 lines and 45 chapters. Very long poem written in rhyme royal and also couplet form. So two kinds of formats are used, rhyme royal and also couplet form. 5,800 lines, 45 chapters. What is the plot all about? It deals with the education and pilgrimage of the knight Grand Amour. Okay, this is the name of the knight, Grand Amour. So it deals with the education and pilgrimage of this knight, the pastime of pleasure. This is also subtitled as The History of Grand Amour with the name of the protagonist. The Pastime of Pleasure or The History of Grand Amour. That is the complete title. Now another work is The Example of Virtue. This is written in 7-line Chaucerian stanza form and also in decasyllabic couplets. These are the rhyme scheme. Another important work is The Conversations of Swearers. So please remember all these important titles. Okay. Now the next important poet English, the next important English Chaucerian was Alexander Barclay. He was also a poet and a priest. His most famous work is The Ship of Fools. This is actually a translation of a German satire, Das Narrenschiff. This is the title of the German satire by Sebastian Brandt. He is the author. Sebastian Brandt's German satire was translated into English by Alexander Barclay as The Ship of Fools. Now, why Barclay is important? Because Barclay was the first English poet to choose a German subject, and also he was the first English poet to write eclogues in English. Eclogues, you have all heard about Virgil's eclogues, but Barclay was the first English poet to write eclogues in English language. That's why he is an important poet. Now, his other works are The Castle of Labour, Eclogues, The Mirror of Good Manners, etc. And Barclay's Eclogues is the earliest English collection of pastoral poems, as I have told you already. He wrote total 5 eclogues. So Barclay is mostly remembered for his 2 works, Eclogues and the translation of a satire, The Ship of Fools. Now, next important English Chaucerian is John Skelton. John Skelton is known for his satirical poems. He wrote mainly satires. He served as a tutor to Henry VIII for 5 years. And at that time, he noticed the court life very closely. That is why he has written a satire on court life, which is called Bouge of Court. A satire on court life. Another important work is Colin Clout, which is satire on the vices of clergy. So again, church people were satirized. And his allegorical work is called Magnificence. This is very important, very famous work, Magnificence. So these are all works of John Skelton. His other works are Ballad of Scottish King, which was actually the celebration of the victory at Flodden, Ballad of Scottish King. Another work is the Book of Philip Sparrow. It is actually an elegy. It is a lament of a Norwich schoolgirl. So the narrator is a schoolgirl whose pet bird was killed by a cat, and she is lamenting for the death of her pet bird. That is the work, the Book of Philip Sparrow. He has also written another elegy on the death of the noble prince King Edward IV. Okay. So these are all works by John Skelton. Now the next important part is the Scottish Chaucerians. So I have talked about the English Chaucerians. Now who are the Scottish Chaucerians? First important Scottish Chaucerian was King James I. You all know his name. King James I, he wrote King Square, which is in English, which is known as King's Book, written in rhyme royal. Now this stanza form is known as rhyme royal because King James I used it for the first time. Rhyme royal was first used by King James I. That is why it is known as rhyme royal. And he wrote King Square when he was imprisoned in the Tower of London by the English people. In my class on Anglo-Norman age, I have mentioned that during that time, the Tower of London was a very important piece of architecture which was built during that time, right? So in that Tower of London, King James I was imprisoned by the English people. And while he was in prison, he wrote this book, The King is Square, in rhyme royal. Okay. Now what is this book all about? It is actually a love poem dedicated to John Beaufort. Who was Beaufort? Beaufort was the daughter of Earl of Somerset, whom he saw through prison window and married to her later. So King James I first saw her, John Beaufort, from the prison window, and he fell in love with her. Later he married her. So this poem is actually dedicated to his beloved and his later wife Beaufort, who was the daughter of Earl of Somerset. Okay. This is all about King Square and James I's only notable work. Now the next important poet is Robert Henryson. The most important work of Henryson is the Testament of Cressida, which was modelled on Chaucer's Troilus and Cressida. Okay. Another important work was Orpheus and Eurydice, which was an adaptation of Boethius. Robin and Mackin, which is a pastoral poem, and he is famous for translating Moral Fables of Aesop. That is his important translation work. Now, the next important poet is William Dunbar. William Dunbar is known as the Burns of the 15th century. He wrote mainly allegory, comical and satirical verse, and also religious poetry. His most famous work is The Golden Targe. Okay, it is also a dream poem celebrating the victory of love over reason. That is the main theme of the poem, the victory of love over reason, the Golden Targe. Okay. His other important work is The Thistle and the Roys. It was written to celebrate the marriage between King James IV and Margaret Tudor, Henry VII's sister. As I have already told you that Chaucer has written the poem The Parliament of Fowls to celebrate the marriage of Richard II. In the same way, he has written Thistle and the Roys to celebrating the marriage of King James IV and Margaret Tudor. Another poem is The Two Married Women and the Widow, which satirizes the drinking habit of women. Another important work is The Dance of Seven Deadly Sins. Okay, so these are all important works written by William Dunbar. The next important poem is Gavin Douglas. Gavin Douglas' most famous work, The Palace of Honor, which was dedicated to King James IV and imitated Chaucer's House of Fame. Okay. The Temple of Glass, I have told you earlier, that was also modeled on House of Fame, and the Palace of Honor is also modeled on House of Fame. Owen Douglas is important because he translated Virgil's Aeneid into English for the first time. Please remember that Douglas has translated Virgil's Aeneid into English for the first time. His another important work is King Heart. Okay. Now, another important Chaucerian is Sir David Lindsay. Sir David Lindsay is the last of the Scottish Chaucerians. You just need to remember the titles: The Dream, The Testament of Squire Meldrum, Pleasant Satire of the Three Estate, etc. So these are all the important works of Sir David Lindsay. Okay. So that's the end of today's class. I have covered all the important poets during the reign of Chaucer. So please subscribe to the channel and also please press the bell icon so that you will be notified every time I post a new video. I would also like to inform you that my class schedule on YouTube is Monday to Friday at 3 p.m. Okay, Monday to Friday at 3 p.m. I will come live on this YouTube channel. And about my special class, I want to tell you that on Wednesday at 8 a.m. I have another special class on the Canterbury Tales, which is on Unacademy app. So please install the Unacademy app and press the reminder button so that you can join with me in my Wednesday's class. So that's all about today. I hope this class helped you a lot. Thank you all for watching this video till the end. Thank you very much, my dear learners. Before leaving, I want to remind you, please use the referral code Brishti10 so that you can get 10% extra discount in your overall price. So that's all about today. Have a nice day to all of you. Okay. Thank you very much. We will meet again tomorrow at 3 p.m. with another interesting class. Bye-bye.